Welcome students, I am Dr. Smita Sharma, Associate Professor in Physics, and as you know, we are continuing differential amplifier. This is my fourth lecture on differential amplifier. So what we have studied in the, we'll just take a glance. The topic covered in the previous lecture were AC analysis of dual input balanced output differential amplifier. In this analysis, we had calculated voltage gain, differential input resistance and output resistance of the differential amplifier. Quick look back. So this is dual, these are four diagrams of four configurations of differential amplifier, and the first configuration is dual input balanced output. Here voltage gain is given by RC upon small re. Second is the dual input unbalanced output. Because the output is unbalanced, so the gain reduces to half. So the gain is RC upon 2RE. In the third case, it is single input balanced output. Again, because the output is balanced, the gain is RC upon small re. And in the fourth case, single input unbalanced output, here again the gain reduces to half. So these are four configurations that are generally used, and we have discussed in detail dual input balanced output. Now in this lecture we'll study an important property of the differential amplifier, that is common mode rejection ratio. An important characteristics of dual input balanced output differential amplifier is its ability to suppress undesired disturbances that might be amplified along with the desired signals. Generally what happens when we apply some input signal, then the noise of in the wire, the current flowing, some type of noise deliberately introduced along with the input signal. But the differential amplifier generally amplifies the difference of the two input signals. So when noise is applied at the both the input signals along with both the input signals, then it generally gets cancelled out. But it is not that simple, because when the matched pair of transistors are used in differential amplifier, the unwanted signals such as noise or hum would appear as common to both input bases, and therefore the net output would be theoretically zero. So what is important? Important is that the transistors are perfectly matched in order to cancel out the effect of noise. Practically effectiveness of rejecting the common signal, however, depends on the degree of matching between the two common emitter stages forming the differential amplifier. Generally, theoretically we can say it comes out to be zero, but practically we know no two transistors are perfectly matched, no resistors have the same value of resistance. So the two stages of the differential amplifier are nearly equal, similarly matched, but they are not perfectly matched. So some degree of difference remains, and it is quality, it depends on the how perfectly we match the two transistors and the stages, so that the effect of noise is reduced. So we can reduce them, but theoretically we can calculate, we can put them zero, but practically they are not zero. So in other words, more closely equal are the currents in the input transistors Q1 and Q2, the better is the common mode signal rejection. So it entirely depends on the two stages, common emitter stages of the differential amplifier. It depends on the two transistors and the current flowing through it. The better they are matched, better will be their ability to reject the common mode signal, that is unwanted signal. Now When the same voltage is applied to both the input terminals of a differential amplifier, the differential amplifier is said to operate in common mode configuration. If we consider two input signals V1 and V2 are applied, then the output of an ideal differential amplifier will simply be V0 V0 is equals to AD V1 minus V2, where always AD is the gain of the differential amplifier. But as we have seen earlier, that practically the output not only depends on the difference of the two signal, but it also depends on the average level called the common mode signal, VC. So VC, what is VC? VC, as we have studied earlier, it is V1 plus V2 upon 2. So the output voltage depends on two factors, VD and VC. So actually in practical applications, V0 is equals to ADVD plus ACM VC. Here ACM is the gain for a common mode signal. The ability of a differential amplifier to reject a common mode signal is expressed by its common mode rejection ratio. So we will define why we are defining CMRR. CMRR defines the ability of differential amplifier whether it is good at rejecting the unwanted signal or not. This is decided by CMRR, common mode rejection ratio. First of all, rejection ratio definition, how it is defined. So common mode rejection ratio is the ratio of differential gain AD to the common mode gain ACM. In equation form, we can write CMRR is equals to AD upon ACM. In decibels, obvious it can be written as, in terms of decibels, 20 log AD upon AC mod of AD upon ACM. Now AD we have calculated in AC analysis, but we want to calculate ACM. We must know ACM before calculating CMRR. So this is the circuit to calculate ACM. How can we calculate ACM? The common mode voltage ACM can be determined as follows. Apply a known voltage VCM to both the terminals of the differential amplifier. Now in this diagram, see here, we are applying VCM, and this input signal is applied to both Q1 and Q2. Then we measure the output voltage VOCM. Output is taken across both the collectors. This VOCM and the input voltage VCM together produces ACM. So ACM is VOCM upon VCM. Ideally we expect ACM to be 0, because differential amplifier should have the ability to reject both all the input signals, so the gain should be 0, or VOCM should be 0. In other words, we would like to have CMRR of differential amplifier ideally equal to infinity. So if ACM is 0, then what will CMRR? CMRR will be infinite. So this is the ideal case, and ideally CMRR will be AD upon ACM. If ACM is 0, CMRR is infinity. But in practical purposes, we know VOCM is not equal to 0. It can be nearby 0, but it is not entirely 0. So ACM will not be 0 completely, and if ACM is not be completely 0, then CMRR can have a high value, but it cannot be infinity. So in practice, it is advantageous to keep CMRR of differential amplifier higher. So in this way, we have seen that the differential amplifier has an important property that has been defined through CMRR. This CMRR will also be discussed when we'll study operational amplifier. Now we'll discuss another property of the that is associated with the differential amplifier, that is constant current bias. If you remember, in your first lecture, we had studied the block diagram of an operational amplifier. In the block diagram, we had depicted first stage that consists of differential amplifier, and that differential amplifier is connected with constant current bias. Now, what do we mean by constant current bias? First of all, what is biasing? You should know what is biasing. This is a question to be asked. What is biasing? So please go through your books and we'll discuss further what is biasing. Generally, biasing means we are applying DC voltage to the circuit so that it can operate. Now in differential amplifier, we have seen that two DC voltages are shown, plus VCC and minus VEE, and the emitter current that is provided in the circuit is basically dependent on emitter resistance RE and VEE. So the practical circuit that we have studied earlier has emitter bias. We can say that emitter decides the current flowing through the differential amplifier. So it is emitter biasing. Now we will study why we are studying constant current bias, and what is the difficulty that we face with emitter bias. We can set constant current bias to set up DC emitter current, which is better because it provides current stabilization and assures a stable operating point for the differential amplifier. Now what is the reason behind constant current bias? The reason is to provide current stabilization. The total amount of the current should remain constant that is flowing in the differential amplifier. If that changes, then we will defeat the purpose of a stable operating point. So constant current bias is generally used in place of emitter bias so that we get a constant current flowing through the differential amplifier and a stable operating point. So this is the diagram of constant current bias. Now if you see, initially the diagram was, this is differential amplifier, and here we generally this is an additional circuit. Generally we have studied from here it goes into RE and then it is connected to minus VEE. This was the emitter bias. Now we have added an additional transistor Q3, R1 and R2, two resistors, and this circuit along with RE and VEE makes constant current bias. So what is the need of this additional circuit? Just we'll discuss here, and how it is better. Now because when the VE is providing current to the emitters and they should remain stable, so for some time, after some time, this battery is unable to provide the constant current, and so the operating point shifts. Now we will see with the help of this circuit how does this operating point remains stable. Now figure shows dual input balanced output differential amplifier where RE is replaced by constant current transistor Q3. The DC collector current in the transistor Q3 is established by R1, R2 and RE as shown in the figure. Why we are seeing DC collector current? Because that the collector current of Q3 is fed into the differential amplifier circuit. So that collector current is important to us. Now how will we calculate this DC collector current of Q3 will be discussed in the next slide. So again we have focused on the constant current bias circuit. This circuit depicts a voltage divider rule. Now, have you studied voltage divider rule? You must have studied voltage divider rule in electronics. That what does it depicts? It shows if there are two resistors, two or many resistors, and the total potential difference across the total resistors is given, and we have to calculate potential difference across one of the resistors, then what is the formula according to voltage divider rule? V1 is always equal to V R1 upon addition of the two resistors R1 plus R2. So how this formula is established? This can be seen in a very simple way, that this is V and suppose I current is flowing through the circuit. So we can write according to simple Ohm's law, V is equals to I R1 plus R2. In this way we calculate I. I is V upon R1 plus R2. Now we have to calculate V1. So what will be V1? V1 will be the current flowing in this and the resistor, that is I into R1. So V1 is simply I R1. Putting the value of I, we get V R1 upon R1 plus R2. So this formula can be directly applied. Why I have told you this this voltage divider rule? Because this same voltage divider rule will be applied in this circuit. So applying voltage divider rule, the voltage at the base of Q3 is VB3 barabar minus R2 VEE R1 plus R2. Now which circuit which loop we have taken? We have taken this loop, R2 then R1 then VEE. So V minus VE and ground, this is the total V as shown here. V, this is total V, and we have to calculate VB3. VB3 is the potential at the base of the transistor Q3. So we have to calculate VB3 and with respect to ground. So this R2 potential difference across R2 will behave as V1. So what will be V1? R2, because we are taking across R2, the total potential is minus VEE and the total resistance is R1 plus R2. So we have directly applied the voltage divider rule to this loop. Now we will now calculate VE3. Now where is VE3? VE3 will be somewhere here. What will be VE3? VE3 is the potential at emitter end. Now we have potential at base end, that is VB3, and the difference between the potential difference between the two is depicted by VBE3. So what will be VE3? VE3 will be simply VB3 minus VBE3. This is the total potential difference. VBE is generally defined as VB minus VE. So interchanging the positions, we have written this equation. Now putting the value of VB3, we get this equation. Now we will calculate the current emitter, current in the emitter of transistor Q3, that is IE3. Now IE3, what will be IE3? IE3 will be VE3. This IE3 will be the current flowing through this RE resistor. So at this end we have minus VEE, at this end we have VE3. So potential difference will be VE3 minus V minus of minus VEE upon RE. This is the potential difference. Potential, what is potential difference? Why we are taking this as positive? Because current is flowing in this direction. So VE3 minus of minus VEE upon RE will be the IE3. So this is shown here. Now again putting the value of VE3, we get this equation. Now this emitter current is assumed approximately equal to the collector current of the Q3, that is the current that we are required to calculate. This current is applied to the differential amplifier. Because the two halves of the differential amplifier are symmetrical, each has half of the current. So the current supplied to the two emitters will be IE1 equal to IE2 will be approximately equal to IC3 upon 2. So this is the current supplied to both the symmetrical stages of the differential amplifier. Now the collector current IC3 in transistor Q3 is fixed and must remain invariant because no signal is injected into either the emitter or base of Q3. So in the diagram, there in the to the base of the Q3 circuit, Q3 transistor, and to the emitter of the Q3 transistor, if we see no signal is injected to it, we are not providing any input signal. So if we are not providing any input signal to the base of the transistor Q3 or to the emitter of the transistor Q3, then there must be no change in the collector current, because we are not providing any signal. So if if no signal is provided, collector current is not changing, and in turn the current provided to the two symmetrical stages of the differential amplifier will remain same or invariant. That is what we require. So the transistor Q3 is a source of constant emitter current for transistors Q1 and Q2 of the differential amplifier. Thus, this is constant current bias, which behaves much better manner than simply the emitter bias, in which that includes only resistor RE and minus VEE power supply. Now there is some difficulty in this circuit also. This we'll see in next slide. One more thing, in the differential amplifier analysis, we know that for emitter bias circuit, obviously we have calculate voltage gain, output resistance, input resistance, all calculation we have made with the help of emitter bias. And in that case, in the last while solving them, we have assumed that RE is very much greater than small re. So this constant current bias also behaves as a source of it also behaves as a open circuit. because it behaves as a AC equivalent of DC current source and is a source of very high resistance. So that is required from the above condition. Actually, what does it means? That for differential amplifier to behave properly and to calculate voltage gain, output resistance, input resistance, we have taken the approximation that RE, capital RE, should be very much greater than small re, that is resistance, AC emitter resistance of the transistors. Now when we replace RE, emitter bias circuit, by a constant current bias circuit, then also we see that because Q3 circuit, constant current bias circuit, is providing constant current, so it behaves as though it is a DC battery. And because the DC battery behaves in AC analysis, it behaves as an open circuit, so it provides very high resistance. So our condition, what condition we were imposing for calculation, that RE should be very much greater than small re, is fulfilled in this case also. Here also the Q3 circuit has very high resistance with respect as compared to small r. So what we can, why I am telling you this, because if we replace the differential amplifier circuit with emitter bias with a differential amplifier with constant current bias, then also all the equations we have, all the formulas that we have calculated regarding voltage gain, output resistance, input resistance, can equally be applied. They do not change. Therefore, all the equation obtained for differential amplifier configuration using emitter bias are also applicable to differential amplifier with constant current bias. Now, I was saying that there is some problem with this circuit too. What is the problem? A transistor is a temperature sensitive device. We all know transistor parameters change along with the temperature. Changes in temperature cause changes in its operating point, thereby defeating the purpose of Q3 to function as a supplier of constant current to Q1 and Q2. Now if temperature, it is obvious that if we are using for a longer run, then the temperature of the circuit keeps on growing, and if the temperature changes, then because of transistor characteristics, the operating point also changes, and if operating point changes, then the purpose of applying Q3 is not fulfilled. It is not able to apply to supply constant current to Q1 and Q2. In order to remove this property, we apply diodes in place of transistor, because transistors are a temperature sensitive device, but diodes are comparatively less sensitive to the temperature changes. So in order to compensate for changes in temperature and to attain the thermal stability, resistor R1 is replaced by diodes D1 and D2. Now how this is done, we'll see in the next slide. So I have just made the only Q3 constant current bias circuit here, where I have replaced the circuit resistor R1 by two diodes D1 and D2. So here in this diagram we can see that I2 current is shown here, that divides into two, ID and IB3. VBE3 is obvious, the potential difference between base and emitter potential. So this is the circuit. A diode made of semiconducting material as the transistor acts as a more efficient temperature compensating device than even a thermistor. So we have used diodes in order to stabilize Q3. The changes that are produced to the because of temperature and to stabilize this circuit. The base of Q3 is biased with voltage divider containing R2, D1 and D2 as shown from the diagram. Diodes D1 and D2 help to hold the emitter current constant even though the temperature changes. So what is the purpose of applying D1 and D2? They make the emitter current constant even when temperature changes. How they are able to do it? We'll see it. First of all, from the diagram it is seen that I2 flows to the node at the base of Q3 and divides into two parts, ID and IB3 as shown in the figure. Now if the temperature of Q3 increases, as the temperature of Q3 increases, what happens? VBE3 decreases. The base to emitter voltage decreases. If base to emitter voltage decrease, then this reduced VBE3 tend to raise the voltage drop across RE. So that what it will do, as seen from this equation, if VBE3 reduces, then VE3 will increase. And if VE3 increases, then in turn IE3 will also increase. However, the voltage drop across D1 and D2 also decrease, causing greater portion of I2 to contribute to ID. At the same time, the potential drop across D1 and D2 also decrease. So if voltage across D1 and D2 decreases, then more current flows through the diodes. So greater portion of the I2 current flows through ID, in turn decreasing the current IB3 flowing through the transistor Q3. So if IB3 decreases, so the increase in IE3 is reduced. This causes IB3 to decrease, which prevents any significant increase in I3. So in this way, we get a stable operating point. If I3 remains constant, then IC3 will always be constant, and this constant current will be supplied to Q1 and Q3. So just a brief look back, what we are doing, we have replaced R1 by D1 and D2 resistors. I2 current flows from R2, which divides into two, IB3 and ID. Now when temperature increases, the base to emitter voltage of Q3 decreases. If base to emitter voltage of Q3 decreases, then it increases VE3. When VE3 increases, this in turn increases the emitter current, IE3. If IE3 increases, then IC3 will also increase, and the current provided to Q1 and Q2 will increase, thereby shifting their operating point. Now what happens? When IE3 increases, at the same time the voltage across D1 and D2 also decrease. When voltage across D1 and D2 decrease, the current flowing through ID increases. So current flowing through, if I2 is divided into IB3 and ID, if ID increases, then in turn IB3 decreases. And when IB3 decreases, this decreases IE3. So ultimately, on the whole, IE3 remains constant, and thus IC3. For a more better performance, generally a transistor array CA3086 may be used as constant current bias. This can also be used. Sometimes Zener diode is used in place of diodes because they can have matching temperature coefficient of voltages to those of transistors as shown in the figure. We here in figure we have replaced the two diodes with the Zener diode. So these all are about constant current bias. The reason why we are studying it is that we want to provide a constant current to the differential amplifier circuit so that it can behave so that it may have a stable operating point and may work properly. So all these constant current bias has been studied because of this. Next, one more important property that is dealt with differential amplifier is the level translator. In the next lecture, we will discuss what is meant by level translator. Thank you.